She has made a deal with the devil to keep her beauty forever. She is the Mistress of the Dark. Hello and welcome to the weekly vmcampos Comic Book Club. I'm your host, vmcampos. This is the series where I review a comic book new or old from my collection. This week I'm reviewing Elvira, Mistress of the Dark #1, published by Claypool Comics in 1993, which is perfect for Halloween. First, a little background information. Elvira, also known as Cassandra Peterson, has been gracing our TV screens and the silver screen since the 80s. This is a character that she created as a sort of the hostess with the mostess, a spunky, no-nonsense seductress with a sense of humor. In the vein of Mystery Science Theater 3000, she reviewed the worst movies known to humanity with humor and aplomb. She was so famous eventually, she had her own Hollywood movie, which is utterly amazing. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark from 1988. I love it. You should watch it. Every year, as is tradition. And therefore, this comic book-like character had to have her own comic book. Now, this is a later series because she first debuted in Elvira's House of Mystery for DC Comics. I did a review of that comic as well. Check out the link. It had some amazing covers, some very memorable covers, like some Dave Stevens covers. But the interiors weren't that great. We had very little Elvira content in those comics. It was mostly just in the classic 80s horror anthologies of the time, totally bloodless and toothless, kind of disappointing. So eventually, she got her own series again, but over at Claypool Comics, which lasted for 166 issues from 1993 all the way to 2007. She lay dormant for a while until 2018 or so, when Dynamite resurrected her with a new series of adventures, which are also very fun. But today we're going to be talking about the Claypool Comics first appearance of Elvira. Claypool Comics is a publisher that had like 6 issues or 6 different series that lasted from 93 to 07, distributed by Eclipse Comics. But they made their bread and butter basically off of Elvira with 166 issues. And so today we'll check out the first issue. Cover art. Well, every cover, this is fun, every cover of the 166 issues featured a photo cover of Elvira herself, either from various shots of the movie or other publicity shots. In the newer Dynamite series, several of these were republished or repurposed for new covers for the Dynamite series, and those had lots of variant covers. Like, no joke, there were like 20 different variants for issue #1 for the various Dynamite comics. Kind of excessive, but I got the photo covers for those because I'm a sucker for a nice photo cover. And here we began the tradition with Elvira first issue photo cover. There she is atop her sexy vehicle with that amazing spiderweb grill. It's kind of a dark printing, actually. The printing, actually, in general is kind of bad. You can really see it on the back cover. The registration was done really badly. I don't know if this is just on my copy or on all copies, but it's slightly off. If you zoom in, you might be able to see that it is slightly printed weird. You can, again, see it in the back there with that blue plate just slipping from the registration, and it doesn't really help. Now, if you look at it in a distance, no problem, so don't look too close. Anyway, it's a fun cover. All the covers also had a very just simple color, and then the photo, her logo, and then a couple of quips about the book, plus the creative team. So that's the cover. Interior art varied from years to years. This particular issue #1, has 2 different artists, or that is, artistic team. For the first story, we've got James Fry and Terry Austin. And for the second story, we've got Dan Spiegel. So a variety of artists, like Amanda Connor, also worked on the Elvira series. After all, it lasted over a decade, 14 years, and it all started here. The writing team, Paul Dini, who worked, of course, on the Batman series. He's the scripter for this one. And in the second story, we've got Joe Duffy. So big pedigree of great creative teams on the various stories throughout the series. So as you can see from the interiors, black and white, glorious, crisp, black and white. I really enjoyed the interior art on these stories for various reasons, mostly because, it's very crisp, beautiful black and white. Great expressions, variety of panel layouts, and subject matter. The art on the first story is more cartoony than in the second story. We get a little bit more realism in the second story, but we can still tell, that's Elvira. That's the real Elvira in cartoon form. The various characters look amazing. Elvira really works well as a cartoon character. She's already so over the top. In this very first story, what's interesting, and in the editorial over here, it kind of talks about how the movie, it's a jumping off point to the comic stories with some tweaks here and there. So we have some recurring elements. Okay, Elvira is a horror movie hoster, and the mean old boss, Rosalind Wick, is just not impressed with Elvira's talents, and so she wants to fire her, but Elvira says, no, wait a minute, I got an amazing contract here. You have to buy me out. If you're going to fire me, it's going to cost you way too much. So, okay, the loophole is she can stay on the show, on the station, but she doesn't have to host horror. So, of course, the boss wants to torment her by making her be the host of various other terrible shows, like a kids show. Here we have, the Scourge of the Time, Barney and the like. Great splash page over here. And then so the joke of it all is that, she can take it and she can dish it out. She's being moved to these various other shows and she handles it just fine. Kids show, cooking show, shopping show, America's Funniest Home Movies type of show. And she manages it all there. Now she gets some incriminating evidence from the boss, which then makes her job secure. She goes back to her horror hosting duties. It's just really fun, lighthearted stories, very well drawn. Occasionally we get sort of a higher end drawings compared to the simpler drawings. But even these drawings, I don't mean simple, because there's a lot of great line work, cartoony designs, but sometimes they throw in here sort of a brush style, not just flat ink, but we've got a variety of panel layouts, cartoony expressions, characters, very enjoyable. That's the first story. The second story is shorter. We're at yet another bad movie review. Shenanigans happen with the mechanical gorilla arm here. And this is a different artist with a different style, but this is also very enjoyable drawing style for Elvira. Ancillary characters look really good as well. We got the usual jokes. There's a lot of great quips and puns and bad jokes and dad jokes throughout the series. I think that's one of the funny things about Elvira. She doesn't take herself too seriously. She can kick butt when she needs to, such as summoning her demonic familiar to take care of her former agent. But sometimes people dismiss her for thinking she's, sort of an airhead bimbo or whatever, but she's not. She's got a great Valley Girl accent, which I love. I love that contrast between sort of the horror hostess in the vein of Vampira or these other dark girls like Morticia Adams. But what makes her unique is that amazing beehive, Valley Girl accent, eye-catching outfit, and the bad jokes. So the shorter story here is a continuation to be continued on the future issues, where an evil clown comes to menace her. That's fun. You don't need to really know much about Elvira to enjoy the book, because it's self-contained stories that work pretty well. Although, if you know a little bit about the lore of Elvira, you'll enjoy that. I did notice something different, however. We've got her familiar, which is named Bella in this story, whereas it was named Gonk, short for Algonquin, in her movie, but they changed it to Bella for some reason, not sure why. They do return to calling it Gonk again in the new Dynamite series, the newer Dynamite series. That's just minor little things to quibble about that don't matter. Even this fun right here, she's in her scary pajamas, but it's way too cute to be scary. She leans out of her tower, but nope, she's living in an old motorhome, one of these old what do they call streamliners, but it's just got the horror motif to it. That's so much fun. It's just a really fun series. They throw in some fan service here and there, some fourth wall breaking humor, A nice sudsy shower always perks me right up. Looks like it does the same thing for my male readers too. And then we've got Bella as a transformative creature here and there. So yeah, really fun. Nothing too gratuitous or egregious. I think the stories still stand the test of time. They do have a lot of kind of pop culture references at the time. So for this 30-year-old book, some of them might fly over the heads of some of the newer comic book readers. But for us old-timers that enjoyed comics, we'll get all the jokes. What's also enjoyable is, of course, looking at the extra material, such as this Yours Cruelly letters to Elvira. So right here they're eliciting readers' responses and a story about how it all came to be. Pause it, read it on your own. But basically, where does the creative team hail from? The reason for a new Elvira series. Assurance that Elvira herself, Cassandra Peterson, does have a hand or a say in the various stories and final say and so forth. So that's cool, of course. Preview of future issues and other Claypool comics to be on the lookout for. So again, Claypool isn't really very well known. There were 3 series that lasted a significant number of issues. I'll put them up on the screen here. And most people don't really know them at all. But yeah, this publisher went from 93 to 07, really on the back of Elvira, a monthly series that lasted 166 issues, each one with an eye-catching photo cover, very stark, simple color, and interiors that were in black and white with great drawings. Not all issues, especially the later issues, had the high-quality, glossy white paper. They did go to newsprint eventually by the end, but still beautiful black and white. Great, fun stories. Oh, another one was Soul Searchers and Company. This one had Amanda Connor working on it for a long time. Peter David was there here and there as well, and that one also went to like 80-something issues. Out of the 3 long-running series, 2 went to around 80 issues, and one went, and only Elvira went to 166, and a couple of others went to 12 issues, and then off into the Forgotten Realms. Something like their Fear City Saga. So here's a little bit of a color preview of Fear City Saga. The back cover continues it. The previews a little bit with some really bad printing. So we've got Phantom of Fear City and Soul Searchers, and these kind of went nowhere. But if you know about these 2 series, tell me in the comments. I never really knew about them. I just knew about Elvira. And then that little cat logo from Claypool Comics. Besides that, I didn't really know anything about this publisher. And I was always intrigued that they had some connection with Eclipse, which of course we all know Eclipse. And I loved these back in the 90s, these true crime cards. I was so interested in collecting these. You know, everyone's a morbid child at one point. And I enjoyed these true crime cards. I think I had the Jeffrey Dahmer card. I never got the most valuable one of Charles Manson. But there was Berkowitz and Chikatilo and all of these killers that nowadays you think, wow, they had trading cards about serial killers, Eileen Wuornos, etc., and also gangsters. So they'd make cards out of anything. Eventually these were collected into book form, and the volume 2 is a little bit difficult to find apparently on eBay. You can find the gangsters one easily, and you can get a full set of these cards as well on eBay for a few bucks. Those were the days. Back when Elvira had her long-running comic book. So now I'd like to hear from you. Are you also a fan of Elvira? Did you watch her movie in the 80s? Did you watch her horror hosting episodes back in the 80s? Are you more of a newer Elvira fan? Did you read her amazing autobiography that reveals everything? You should. Were you into the other Claypool comic series, or just into Elvira? Do you want to go back and pick up a few issues? Some of them are valuable, especially the final issues because of low print runs. And even this first issue, not extremely expensive, but it's not going to be in the dollar bins because the dollar bins cannot contain Elvira. So this week I read Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, #1, published by Claypool Comics in 1993. This has been the weekly VM Campos Comic Book Club, and I'll see you next week.